myopia management. And now I invite Dr. Amshi Filamasan, who is a senior pediatric ophthalmologist who is working in multiple hospitals like Aradhana, Precise, Gitanjali, and Shankar's Eye Hospital in Trivandrum to speak about monitoring and adjusting myopia therapy.
Okay, so my talk will be mainly be a simple talk where I want to focus on mainly the general ophthalmologists because I think they see more patients before they are referred to us. So let's go with, and many of the patients that come to me from general ophthalmologists, they've already been started on atropine by them. So I want to just give a short layout on when do we start and then how do we monitor, and then you can refer to us. That's another thing. Okay, so why do we need to monitor myopia progression? Because the rate of myopia progression in Indian children varies between 0.07 plus minus 0. Up to 0.5 diopter per year. But younger children, like Laila Madam has mentioned, they progress faster as compared to the older ones. And so, because of rapid progression, we need to monitor them more closely. And then we all know that every diopter increase in myopia leads to increased chances of maculopathy, retinal detachment, cataract, and so we want to keep them on close monitor. As previously mentioned, there are different factors that come into play when it comes to the management strategies: lifestyle, optical, pharmacological, and the newer ones like red light therapy and upcoming emerging research like 7-methylxanthine. The current challenge for clinicians, including pediatric ophthalmologists and general ophthalmologists, is that there is no proper guideline as when we should initiate the treatment, how to initiate the treatment, and how to monitor this progression. So that's when what Madam has said, the impact myopia management came into being. First, we have identified the true axial myope. Then we map the risk factors as previously said by Madam. And we need to pick up. So only those patients who have progressive axial length elongation are eligible for myopia progression, as most of the therapy that we use, they are confined to this axial length elongation. And we need to advise appropriate myopia control strategy. And in our Indian scenario, counseling the patient and consulting them and monitoring them is very, very important, because no matter how many times we counsel, we still lose follow up of them because they like to do doctor shopping. Eventually, most of them will come back, but if you know how to give the correct counseling, then they will always come back to you. They will go to 2 3 more doctors. The same 2 3 doctors will say the same thing, and then they'll be like, okay, that first doctor said the same thing, so they'll come back to us. So irrespective of whether it's pediatric ophthalmologist or general ophthalmologist. Then we have to know about the taper and cessation of the control. So the first step about true axial myope, it has become very important, and as previously discussed before, what Rashmi Madam said, every patient, every child that comes to you, irrespective of whether the child is myope or not, do a detailed history. You don't have to have a myopia clinic for that setup. You can, in your OPD, do the detailed history, take all these necessary things, and if you want to monitor the progression, we strictly follow by this, where we measure axial length at first visits to have a baseline of how it's going to progress. And it's better to take keratometry baseline also. Then as usual, we give glasses and follow up. For me, I would like to follow up at 3 months, then at 6 months. So this is a type of format that I have started to keep. So every child that comes, we have a small chart where there will be axial length is written and the month they visit. So the problem with our scenario is, even if we call them at 6 months, they will not come at 6 months. They will come whenever they want to come. So preferably if they come correctly at 6 months, the monitoring would be much more easier. If not, then we can say like August, or whenever they come, make a note of the axial length. And you don't need to, okay. The other thing is, the step 2 is we need to map the risk factors as previously said. If the parents are myopic, early onset of myopia, if they have less outdoor activities, and if all the tests that has been previously mentioned, we map those risk factors. And then On the subsequent follow-up, if they start showing increase in axial length, then we pick those progressive myope and we follow up the how much it's progressing. So around 0.1 millimeter progression is, yes, acceptable yearly, but if it is more than that, then we have to go for myopia control. So what to do if there is no axial length increase but the power has increased? So we, like Madam said, we have to look for something like, is it lenticular cause, or is it curvatural cause, or is it pseudomyopia? Okay. Then this is where it comes into play. So axial length, it's good to do lens thickness also, which will help us to know about the lenticular component, and wide to wide measurements. And this may not be available in every clinic. So what you can do is axial length, if you have a B scan, you can, most of the people who will be doing cataract surgery, if you have a B scan, do the B scan, you can manually measure it. Okay. Wide to wide, you can manually measure it. If you can, in slit lamp itself, you can measure. There are several instruments that have now come into play for myopia monitoring, but all of these instruments are very expensive, and I don't think many of us can afford to have that in our clinic. So like I said, basic axial length you can do with B-scan machine that you're using, and keratometry you can do with your AR machine. Then appropriate treatment strategy, the fourth step would be, if there is a myope with relative peripheral hyperopia, then we'll go for defocus glasses or multifocal soft contact lenses or ortho-K lenses. So in Indian scenario, like Laila Madam has said, we don't prefer contact lenses because we don't know how hygienic the parents are handling the kids, how they're going to put or how they're storing it. So preferably we'll go for the defocus spectacles. Then we have those individuals with high accommodative lag or esophoria for near viewing, preferred for bifocals or EDOF contact lenses. Among the low dose atropine, 0.01% is the most studied, and Laila Madam has described in detail about the various studies. So the exact mechanism is not known, and that's why the FDA approval is still pending, but in Indian we have started using it. I'm using it in a couple of my patients, and so far I've had good results with my patients, and few of the patients have stopped the medications by themselves and lost follow-up and come back again. Luckily I haven't seen any rebound in them. Basically it acts by suppressing the axial elongation. We use it at night time, and they say that once, if a OD dose at night is not sufficient, you can increase it to BD, or you can shift on to 0.05 OD dose. Adverse effects I haven't seen in many of the kids, and preferably it would be better if you do pupil examination, pupil size measurements to see what is the effect of the atropine. Myopia control lenses, there are different type of lenses. So depending upon the companies, the technology varies, but basically, like it has been previously said, the central area would be the one that is clear zone of central area, surrounded by a zone where there will be a which will cause some peripheral defocus, and that will cause this one, myopic defocus. So several studies have been done based on them. This is just to show you that yes, even though the lenses are expensive, if you can prescribe them to your patients because they are reliable, and all the studies have shown that they are better than single vision lenses. Ortho-K lenses, they causes a flat central curvature, so that it causes a compressive positive pressure centrally. It causes flattening of the central part of the cornea, and it is worn at night time. The benefit is that they don't have to wear glasses throughout during the daytime. But there are several contraindications, like Madam said, infections. And the advantage is that it's reversible. So the moment you stop using the lenses, after 10 to 14 days, it goes back to the normal corneal contour. So coming to this, we always start with monotherapy. We don't start as combination in the first go. Monotherapy, you can decide whether you want to go with this one, atropine 0.01%, or whether you want to start myopic defocus lenses. So then we come to counsel, consult, combine, and monitor closely. So there's a small flow chart which will help you to just approximately have an idea how to follow up. So once we start anti-myopia therapy, the first follow-up is preferably as first month, where we follow for the side effects or any adverse effects. If we're using atropine, we want to see if there's any pupil dilatation or if the child has developed any skin allergy. If it's ortho-K, we want to see same thing, any chances of infection or not. And for all this monotherapy, after that we follow up after 6 months. So at 6 months, a good response would be said if it is less than 0.5 diopter or less than 0.1 millimeter increase in axial length in 1 year is said as a good response. If it is more than that, then we have to think about combination therapy. If it is a good response, we can continue with whatever treatment we're doing, whether it's atropine, ortho-K, or defocus spectacles. So when do we start thinking about combining these therapies? If it's a poor or non-responders to treatment in 1 year, then we can reassess and think of combination. The advantage of combining more than one therapy is that it has enhanced efficacy and it has a synergistic effect. The disadvantage is that, especially in Indian scenario, the cost increases drastically, and so the patients become little bit reluctant. But also there is a side of increased side effects. So several studies starting from 2019, they have tried combining multiple eye drops along with ortho-K lenses, atropine 0.1% with soft contact lenses and myopic defocus glasses. And some of them have found to be effective, some of them have not worked. So mainly now, whether it is monotherapy or combined therapy, we always have to counsel them for lifestyle modification, where we have to make them to increase the time they spend outdoor, preferably 2 hours in a day, and maintain postures, take frequent breaks in between studies or when they're using gadgets, because all the studies that have been done to study the influence of my environment and lifestyle myopia has shown that this helps to prevent onset of myopia and also prevent the progression of myopia. Also, there is a dose-response relationship. So the more time they spend outdoor, the less progression they have. So whenever we start any treatment, we have to know about when to stop it. So preferably, like Laila Madam has said, we have to stop it after 2 years of stability or once they reach adulthood, that is at beyond 17 years of age. However, it has been seen that in few individuals, because myopia progression has been noted in few individuals, even in early adulthood. So like previously said, there are some apps that we can use which will help us to demonstrate, or to the parents, we can explain to the parents about myopia progression. This app is called bhvi.org. We can go enter the ethnicity, the age of the patient, the gender of the patient, what refractive error they have, and how all these different types of treatment is going to affect the myopia progression. So they will. So let's say I select 0.5 to 1% atropine, and then it will show a chart like if the child was not using that eye drop, there was chance of 3.3 mm progression at the age of 17 years. If the child is using these eye drops, it would be managed, is expected to elongate by only 0.38 percentage. So these are all AI based, and they don't give a exact value, but they will have an estimate, and it is more easier for us to convince the parents about how we can monitor the progression of myopia. So basically, like previously discussed by all the speakers, no matter what we do, there is nothing called one single treatment for one child. It has to be modified according to each child's need, and close follow-up is very, very important, because that's what's all about. That's what everything is about, right? Like we want to know how it progresses. These are my reference.